You will answer for this! Control yourself, boy! Stop this madness! No! He must pay! Enough!
There once was a wealthy man who had 2 sons. He lived in a peaceful land, surrounded by fields, servants, and livestock. His house stood tall, respected in the community. Everything seemed perfect on the outside. But inside that house, a storm was brewing. The younger son was restless. He would stand outside at night, staring at the distant hills. He felt trapped. He felt like life was passing him by. He wanted freedom, adventure, independence. He didn't want to wait for his father's rules, his father's timing, his father's wisdom. He wanted his own life. One day, the younger son walked up to his father and said something shocking. "Father, give me my share of the inheritance." In that culture, inheritance was given after the father's death. What he was really saying was, "I can't wait for you to die. I want what is mine now." The words were sharp, painful, disrespectful. The older brother froze. The servants were stunned. But the father said nothing. He didn't shout. He didn't curse. He didn't disown him. Instead, he divided his property between his 2 sons. And just like that, the younger son had everything he thought he needed. Money, resources, freedom. A few days later, he packed his belongings and left for a distant country. He didn't just leave the house. He left his identity. He left his protection. He left his father's covering. At first, life was sweet. He had money, and when you have money, you have friends. He threw parties. He lived wildly. He spent carelessly. He laughed loudly. He felt powerful. He felt unstoppable. But money has wings. And slowly, the coins began to disappear. The parties became smaller. The friends became fewer. The invitations stopped coming. Then disaster struck. A famine hit the land. Food became scarce. Work became scarce. Hope became scarce. The same friends who once praised him now avoided him. He had no savings. No family. No reputation. He had burned every bridge. Desperate, he looked for work. The only job he could find was feeding pigs. Now understand this. For a Jewish man in that time, pigs were considered unclean animals. Touching them was shameful. Feeding them was humiliating. But hunger has a way of humbling pride. He found himself in a pigsty, covered in dirt, smelling of waste, watching pigs eat better than he did. He was so hungry that he longed to eat the pods the pigs were eating. But no one gave him anything. No help. No mercy. No rescue. And there, in the mud, in the silence, in the smell of failure, he came to his senses. He remembered home. He remembered the servants in his father's house. How they had food. How they had shelter. How they had dignity. He said to himself, "How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare, and here I am starving to death?" Then he made a decision. "I will arise and go to my father," he said to himself. "How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare, and here I am starving to death?" Then he made a decision. "I will arise and go to my father." But he didn't plan to return as a son. He planned to return as a servant. He rehearsed his speech. "Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants." Notice something powerful. He didn't blame the famine. He didn't blame his friends. He didn't blame his father. He took responsibility. That is the beginning of transformation. So he stood up. Weak, dirty, broken. And he began the long journey home. Every step was heavy with shame. What will they say? What will my brother do? What if my father rejects me? He imagined rejection. He imagined anger. He imagined punishment. But what he didn't imagine was grace. While he was still a long way off, his father saw him. How? Because the father had been watching. Every day. Waiting. Hoping. The father never stopped looking down that road. And when he saw a small figure in the distance, thin, bent, walking slowly, he knew. That's my son. The father did something shocking. He ran. In that culture, wealthy older men did not run. It was undignified. It was embarrassing. But love doesn't care about dignity. He lifted his robe and ran toward his broken son. Before the son could even finish his rehearsed speech, the father embraced him. He kissed him. The son began. "Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son." But the father interrupted him. He didn't allow him to ask to be a servant. Instead, he turned to the servants and said, "Quick! Bring the best robe and put it on him." The robe covered his shame. "Put a ring on his finger." The ring restored his authority and identity. "Put sandals on his feet." Servants went barefoot. Sons wore sandals. Then the father said, "Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate." Why? "For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." And the celebration began. Music, dancing, laughter. But not everyone was happy. The older brother was in the field when he heard the noise. He asked a servant what was happening. "Your brother has come home. Your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound." The older brother burned with anger. He refused to go inside. The father came out to him. But the older brother said, "All these years I've been serving you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat to celebrate with my friends." He was bitter. Not because his brother returned, but because grace offended his sense of fairness. "But when this son of yours," he continued, "who has wasted your property with reckless living comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him." Notice he didn't say, "My brother." He said, "This son of yours." The father replied gently, "My son, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate. Because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." And that is the story of the prodigal return. It is not just a story about rebellion. It is a story about a father's heart. A father who gives freedom, even when freedom leads to pain. A father who waits, even after rejection. A father who runs, even when dignity says walk. A father who restores, not as a servant, but as a son. Maybe today you feel like the younger son. You left. You failed. You wasted opportunities. You made mistakes. And now you think it's too late. But hear this. As long as you can stand up, as long as you can take one step back, grace is waiting. Or maybe you're the older brother. You did everything right. But your heart became hard. You obeyed. But without love, this story reminds us. The Father's house has room for both. The rebellious and the resentful. Because at the center of it all is not the Son. It is the Father. And his love never stopped.